I am very grateful that my first video was received so well by so many of you. To be perfectly honest, I'm also entirely baffled. I'm a 78-year-old retired engineer speaking into a camera about the virtues of being left alone, and yet millions of you listened. Millions of you watched. I spent a whole afternoon reading through the comments. I read words from 25-year-olds who are already exhausted by the modern dating circus. I read comments from 60-year-old widows who confessed that they finally felt permission to stop feeling guilty for enjoying their empty houses. It seems that we have an epidemic on our hands. Not an epidemic of loneliness, but an epidemic of exhaustion. We are a society that has forgotten how to sit quietly in an empty room. But amidst the overwhelming agreement, there was a current of worry. It was a very specific, very practical kind of worry. It usually read something like this: Arthur, I love your philosophy. I love that you have found your peace. But what happens if you fall? What happens if you get sick in that big quiet house? Who will know? Who will help you? It is a fair question. It is the question that keeps my daughter Sarah awake at night. It is the question that society uses as the ultimate trump card to force older people back into the chaotic world of cohabitation. We are told that we must surrender our peace to ensure our physical safety. Today I want to talk to you about that fear, because I am an engineer, and engineers don't operate on fear. We operate on systems. We look at a potential failure point, in this case, my aging 78-year-old body, and we build a redundancy. We build a safety net. I want to tell you how I'm actively preparing for the end of my life. Not with dread, but with the exact same practical focus I use when I'm building a cabinet in my woodshop. Let us address the physical reality first. I'm not under any illusions about my mortality. My knees ache when it rains. My balance is not what it was when I was 40. The prospect of falling in the garage and not being able to get up is a mathematical probability that increases with every passing year. A few years ago, after I ended things with Sylvia and reclaimed my solitude, Sarah sat me down at my own kitchen table. She had brochures. She had printouts from the internet. She wanted me to move into one of those independent living communities. She painted a picture of emergency pull cords in the bathrooms and a dining hall where someone checks on you every evening when I flatly refused. She pivoted. She wanted to install cameras in my hallways. She wanted me to wear a panic button around my neck. I looked at her, this wonderful, anxious daughter of mine, and I saw the toll my independence was taking on her. That is the hidden cost of living alone when you are old. Your freedom can sometimes become your children's anxiety. I realized that if I wanted to keep my sanctuary, I had to compromise, but I had to do it. On my terms, I needed a system that provided her with data without invading my peace. So we negotiated. We came to an agreement that I call the morning dot. Every single morning at exactly 8:00, I pick up my cell phone and I open my text messages with Sarah. I don't type, good morning. I don't type, I slept well. I type a single period, one dot, and I hit send. That is it. That single punctuation mark is a binary code. It tells her everything she needs to know. It says, I am alive. I have successfully navigated the stairs. I have made my coffee. My heart is beating. If 8:15 rolls around and Sarah hasn't received her dot, she is authorized to call me. If I don't answer, she's authorized to drive over or call the neighbors. Do you understand the beauty of the dot? It requires zero emotional labor. It doesn't drag me into a 20-minute text conversation about the weather or my grandchildren's soccer schedule when all I want to do is listen to the birds. It respects my silence while fulfilling my obligation to the people who love me. Alongside the dot, I swallowed my pride and bought a smartwatch. It has a feature that detects a hard fall and automatically calls emergency services if I don't dismiss the alarm. I wear it every day. I also spent a weekend pulling up all the loose throw rugs in my house, the ones Sylvia had bought, because they are tripping hazards. I installed a sturdy handrail in the shower. I didn't do these things because I am terrified of dying. I did them because I want to protect my current way of life. By removing the practical dangers of living alone, I removed the anxiety. I bought myself the right to be left alone. Peace is not just a state of mind. Sometimes it is a well-secured handrail, but the physical preparation is only half of the equation. There is a much heavier burden that we refuse to talk about, and that is the material legacy we leave behind. We are a culture of hoarders. We spend our lives accumulating things, convincing ourselves that our memories are tied to physical objects. When my wife Elena passed away 10 years ago, I couldn't bear to part with anything. I kept her clothes in the closet. I kept her gardening gloves on the workbench for a long time. The house was a museum dedicated to a life that no longer existed. But as I settled into my 70s, I started to look around at my house differently. I looked at the basement filled with boxes of old tax returns from 1994. I looked at the attic stuffed with broken Christmas ornaments, old school projects from when Sarah was a child, and tools I hadn't used in 2 decades. I thought about my friend Robert. Robert also got remarried a few years ago to avoid being alone. A few months ago, Robert had a mild stroke. He survived, but he had to be moved to a rehabilitation facility and his house had to be downsized immediately to pay for the medical bills. I went over to help his children clean out his garage. It was a nightmare. It took 3 weekends of grueling, dusty, emotionally exhausting work. His children were arguing over what to keep and what to throw away. They were crying over boxes of moldy photographs. They were stressed, angry, and grieving, all while trying to figure out how to dispose of an ancient, rusted lawnmower. Robert's lifetime of accumulation had become a punishment for his children. I came home from Robert's house, washed the dirt off my hands, and made a decision. I refused to let my death become an administrative nightmare for my daughter. I refused to let my physical possessions become a heavy anchor around her neck while she's trying to mourn. So for the past year, I have engaged in a systematic process of subtraction in Sweden. I believe they call it death cleaning. I just call it taking out the trash. Every Saturday morning, I take 1 box from the attic or the basement, just 1. I bring it down to the kitchen table, I make a cup of coffee, and I go through it. I am ruthless. Do I need the receipts from a roof repair done in 2002? No. In the shredder it goes. Do I need 4 different sets of mismatched dinner plates? No. Into the donation box. Do I need the ugly ceramic lamp that Elena's mother gave us for our wedding, which we both hated but kept out of guilt? Absolutely not. Straight into the dumpster. It was difficult at first. Every object felt like a tether to the past. But as I kept going, week after week, something miraculous happened. The house started to feel lighter. I started to feel lighter. I'm keeping a very small, highly curated collection of items for Sarah. A box of my favorite woodworking tools, cleaned and oiled, the photo albums properly labeled, her mother's wedding ring, a journal I've been keeping. I have put all my financial documents, the deed to the house, my life insurance policy, and my will into one bright red binder that sits on the desk in the study. Sarah knows exactly where it is. I sat her down a few months ago and handed her the binder. I told her, when my time comes, everything you need is in here. The house is clean, sell it. Take the money, take the memories, and don't spend a single second agonizing over what to do with my old leather chair. Throw it away, she cried. Of course, people don't like to hear their parents talk about their own passing so plainly. We are conditioned to say, "Oh, don't talk like that, Dad. You have years left." But pretending that the winter isn't coming doesn't stop the snow from falling. It just means you won't have a coat when it arrives. By organizing my exit, I have taken control of the narrative. I'm not waiting for a crisis to force my hand. I'm stripping my life down to the studs like a beautiful piece of cherry wood. I'm sanding away the excess, the distractions, the clutter, until all that is left is the smooth, clean grain of the essential. This brings me to the deepest part of the fear people have about aging alone. It isn't just the fear of falling on the floor. It is the existential terror of crossing the final threshold by yourself. Society tells us that a good death is one where you are surrounded by dozens of weeping family members holding your hands, playing soft music, that if you die alone in your sleep, it is somehow a tragic failure of a life. I fundamentally disagree. I watched my Elalanina die in a hospital room. It was crowded. There were nurses checking monitors, doctors walking in and out, family members whispering in the corners. It was chaotic. And amidst all that noise, I realized a profound truth. Even in a crowded room, she had to make that final journey entirely by herself. I could hold her hand, but I couldn't step into the dark with her. Death is the ultimate act of solitude. It is the one door we must all walk through single file. When you spend your final years desperately clinging to relationships just to avoid being alone. When you fill your days with noise and superficial busy work, you are only distracting yourself from the inevitable. You are running from the quiet, but the quiet is waiting for you at the end of the road. By choosing solitude now, by living in this quiet house, by listening to my own thoughts, I'm getting acquainted with the silence. I'm making friends with it. It is no longer an enemy to be feared. It is a familiar companion. I don't know how much time I have left. I could have 10 years, or I could not wake up tomorrow morning. But I can tell you this. I am not afraid. I have lived a good life. I loved my wife deeply. I raised a good daughter. I have built beautiful things with my hands. And now I have engineered a quiet harbor for my final chapter. My bills are paid. My house is clean. My red binder is on the desk. And tomorrow morning at 5:30, I will wake up. I will make my black coffee. I will sit on the porch and watch the sun rise over the oak tree. At 8:02, I will send a single dot to my daughter. And then I will go out to the garage, run my hands over a piece of raw timber, and spend the day entirely, blissfully, unapologetically alone. To those of you who are watching this, whether you are 30 or 80, I offer you this advice. Stop running from the end. Stop hoarding your fears and your possessions. Look at your life like an engineer. Identify the weak points. Build your systems. Send your dots. Throw away the garbage. Have the hard conversations with your children. Don't let the fear of dying steal the peace of your living. Prepare for the end so that you can actually enjoy the present. If this message resonates with you, if you are also in the process of decluttering your life, whether that means throwing out old boxes or throwing out old societal expectations, I want to hear about it. Leave a comment below. Tell me what you are letting go of today. And as always, if you found some value in an old man's ramblings, hit the like button and subscribe. It costs you nothing, and it tells me that the quiet is spreading. Until next time, stay peaceful.